Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call. And today I am at the Hoyt headquarters down here in, is this just Salt Lake?
Yep.
Salt Lake
City.
Yep. Salt Lake City. And I am joined by Jeremy Eldridge and Evan Williams. And today's show, we're going to talk about, well, all the new stuff at Hoyt, all the toys, all the things. Mm-hmm. Let's get right into this. You have the RX-4, and I want to know, so I shot the RX-3 all last year, killed a bunch of animals with that. What is different about the RX-4 compared to the RX-3?
Yeah, there's a couple changes. One is axle to axle. So it's, what is it, an inch and a half shorter?
Yep, inch shorter.
So it's the shortest premier bow we've ever had. And it's not super short, but it's under 30 inches. We've never really been there before. Also has a new cam. The ZT cam got an upgrade to the ZTR cam, which has more of a rock solid back wall than the ZT cam. Mm-hmm. So just an improvement in the back wall and the module system there.
It's got the integrated rest system upgrade.
That's right, yep.
So you've got the Q80 Integrate MX system, mounts directly to it, so it gives you a little bit more room on the side so you can get your quiver a little bit closer, a little bit better balance overall. So a little bit different of an energy storage system in the cam with that ZTR.
Yeah, it's quieter and smoother than the RX-3.
Yep.
That's kind of the consensus across the board from all the guys that have been shooting it.
I would agree with that, 100%.
Okay.
And we have data to show that. I mean, we're not just building a bow every year and be like, oh man, that seems like it's quieter. I wish we could show you our sound room, but it's back in R&D and it's off limits. But but this sound room is unreal, and just the technology in there and the software we have and what we're gathering in that room. Yeah. I mean, we can look at the data and be, oh man, it's definitely quieter. Where in years past we'd shoot them both, be like, yeah, I think it's quieter.
So, there was a big change between the RX-1 and the RX-3.
Yep.
And then here you are now with the RX-4, not changing it much. So what was the whole theory behind all this?
In years past, bow companies could chase speed because there was so much room for improvement in speed, right? Mm-hmm. So for years and years, you saw bows getting faster and faster and faster, and that was the improvement. And today, I think we're pretty much maxed out. I mean, if you get faster, the bow is just not going to be fun to draw back, not fun to shoot, and that's why the past few years, we've all the bow companies have
pretty flat
on speed. Like, we're not having these huge increases. So the next area to go chase for improvements is in silence, is in vibration free, is in tunability, draw cycle. So that's really what we're focused on now. So that's why from RX-3 with a ZT cam to RX-4 with a ZTR cam, I mean, that's quieter, it's smoother, has a better feeling back wall. I mean, those are significant changes if you know anything about trying to design cam systems. And I mean, it's not just, hey, let's throw another initial on here and say it's a new cam. It was a significant workworkload for our engineers to get there. I mean, you're chasing a little quieter, a little smoother, a little better feel. I mean, a little more energy without, I mean, it's just, there's a lot to it. So that's kind of where you see us putting a lot of our efforts right now, is in those areas.
So tell me about the change to the cam, where now you have the draw stop module and integrated into the module.
For years, we actually had that system. So if you go back even to 2009 with the introduction of the Alpha Max, we had a replaceable module system that we had that built in what we call a mod foot with each one of those A through E module systems in each one of those cams. What it does is that mod foot gives us a greater point of contact, because instead of having a post that you're touching a portion of it too, so you have very, very minimal contact on that cable for a wall. We're replacing that from, let's say, a 1/16 of an inch of contact to 3/8 to almost a 1/2 inch of contact as that mod foot comes around and makes connection with the cable. So with more connection, you have more surface area to spread out that point of contact. Therefore, you get a much better back wall.
Okay. So last year was the first time I shot the QAD rest right on the RX-3. It was really easy to set up, quick. Before that, I had used an AAE for like 4 or 5 years, which I like that rest. But the QAD was built to integrate with this Hoyt, and it was so easy to use. Now you have it integrated with its own mount system.
Correct.
And so what's the theory or the logic behind that? You said to give more clearance for your quiver, but what else?
So we were able to drop weight. We now also have 3 points of contact. So the way that dovetail mount system works is you have an enclosed dovetail system. Inside, you have an all thread that mounts to the main dovetail bracket with 2 on top and 2 lower connection points. So as you loosen for a vertical adjustment, your upper and lower bracket systems loosen, but your central point that's internal on an all thread stays connected to that dovetail block that's integrated and machined onto the riser system. So you can micro adjust vertically on that dovetail and then relock everything in and maintain your actual 6 points of contact, 3 either side.
Okay.
And then you also have micro adjustment for your launch arrest horizontally. So it's a fully, again, integrated system, as the name gives it, but you have micro adjustable vertical and horizontal travel for that rest.
And the dovetail attachment itself is just a way stronger attachment system versus one bolt going in the burger buttonhole. It's clamped into the dovetail that's machined into the bow. So it's bulletproof. I mean, you can hit it with a hammer. It's not going to move. You'll break the rest before you move the rest. Where with the burger button mounted rest, we all know you can get those to move. It's bolted in one spot. It can pivot on that. You have a chance of error on that. So with the dovetail mounting system, it's just rock solid.
What surprises me is that you can have a bow that's as bulletproof as the Hoyt and still have all the benefits with the efficiency, the speed, the feel, the draw cycle, and all those things. Because, years ago, and I won't name the bow company, but years ago, I grew up in Oregon, and there were different companies, and I would shoot what was local, and it seemed like you get a bow that performed really well, like especially in those days, people were chasing speed big time. But then you'd have a broken limb, or you'd have these issues with the bow that would happen, or it'd come out of tune. And here I am, it's phenomenal. Like, I can travel the world with my Hoyt. I can throw it in the back of my truck. I could drop it off a ledge, which I could drop it out of a tree, which I've done more than once. I climb trees.
It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Yeah, like I had on a hook, and I just in Ohio, and I'm like 40 feet in the air. It hits like 2 tree branches as it goes down, poof, hits the ground. I'm like, well, that's it. It's over. Get it out, shoot. It's all good. It's all good. So that is, I think, very unique to Hoyt, and a lot of people don't know this. So you have lifetime
warranty.
Yep, for the original owner.
But to talk about a little more about what you mentioned there with the way we do things. I mean, just with building a tough bow, it's something we've that'll never change. It's always going to be the Hoyt philosophy, is to build the bow, the toughest bow we can get, and that comes from Randy Walk, the president of Hoyt. I mean, that's just his. We're going to build a bow that's safe, dependable, durable, and it makes it tough on our engineering team.
That's what I was going to say.
Because
when you told me 3-4 years ago that you dry fire a bow like 1,500 times?
1,500 times.
80 pounds,
30-inch draw length.
80-pound bow with 30-inch draw length, 1,500 dry fires.
In excess of 104 foot-pounds of kinetic energy production.
It's going to be a hot room.
Yeah.
So that I think is, I don't really know very many bows that could withstand a few dry fires, let alone 1,500.
Right. Yeah. So anytime our engineers design a new riser, that's the first test that has to pass. So they'll build the bow, put it in the dry fire machine, and then start the process. And strings will break and little whatever, but they just put new strings on and keep it going. And at the end of 1,500 dry fires, there can't be any cracks in the riser. The riser can't bend. It can't break anything. Even if it was 1,498 dry fires, it doesn't pass. It literally doesn't pass. So they have to go back, strengthen that area that might have failed, and build a new one and do the test again. And
then you have over 1 million
cycle
draws where you just draw the bow and let it down. Draw the bow, let it down 1 million times.
1 million times.
How long? 1 million times.
It's in there for days.
Yeah, just going.
Yep.
That gives me, as a consumer, it paints a whole different picture for what I'm paying for when I pick up a Hoyt. you know.
And that's the point. We understand that our consumer values their dollar. They work for it. So when you go in and you leave that shop with a Hoyt, we want to build the best bow that you're going to be spending your hard-earned money on.
Yep.
So if it falls out of a tree, if it gets run over by a car, I've seen it multiple times. Guys roll into elk camp, they're shooting, they set their bow down, go grab arrows out of their target, their buddy rolls in and goes right over the top of their bow. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I was in a shop for almost 10 years.
It's weird. I abuse the crud out of my stuff. All my buddies and everyone who hunts with me, I just beat the crap out of it. But I have such good stuff in general across the board that it just keeps on going.
Yeah. And they're all tools.
Yeah, they are. And I don't want to have to baby my bow.
Yep.
And you see me use it, as a handle so I can belly crawl through cactus through the desert with it, like I just, it is a piece of equipment that I feel like I can actually just use without concern in a way that I can if I had some of the old bows that I used to run. Mm-hmm. And so it's a big deal. And that's why I said earlier, what surprises me is to have that kind of durability and still get the performance. Because I expect, if you're going to have that kind of durability, then I'm going to have a huge clunker that is really tough to draw, doesn't feel good to shoot and all that. But none of that's true.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's a good. I mean, we could gain feet per second. Going back to the speed, we could make our bows faster if we put less strands in our strings. That's an easy way to get speed, right? But then you have a string that's more likely to fail. So we build our strings beefier than they need to be, but they're tough. Like they're not way less likely to fail.
Yep.
So
and same thing with our cams. You want more speed? We could take more material off of them. We could make them lighter, increase speed. What happens when you drop it out of a tree? You hit an edge right. Mm-hmm. You taco the track. You bend the entire cam. Your hunt's done.
Well, I think too sometimes is the tuning of the bow too. That comes out of tune when you have something that's not built solid. Mm-hmm. It might shoot really fast or work really well until you put it in a hot car and then you pull it out or it flies on an airplane and then you get there and it's like you have to go to a local bow shop just to get it all retuned. That's a nightmare. 'Cause that's what I mean. I travel, I go places. Some of it's international, some of it's just in the back of the truck bouncing down the road. Mm-hmm. I really can't deal with my bow altering on me constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things we get out of having a president of the company that is as diehard of a bow hunter as you're ever going to meet. I mean, he loves bow hunting as much as any of us, if not more, right? And so he knows all of that, everything you just explained, in the back of the truck, falling out of a tree, being on an airplane, getting on the hunt of a lifetime and knowing that his bow is solid, like nothing moved. He doesn't even have to question it. And that's why he has these standards in place for a Hoyt bow, because he himself is as tough on the equipment as anybody.
So I like carbon fiber. Because
who doesn't?
I mean, it feels so warm and nice in your hand and all that. And you guys have, with the RX-3, it came with your grip system and it can be adjusted a little bit. Tell me a little bit about that, because, there were years in past where I would take my bow and remove the handle because I wanted a real thin handle because it created less torque and I shot my bow better. And it was crazy how many of them had some like weird carved handle for my hand, and it was just that much more contact, that much more torque. And now I feel like I've got this real thin handle, but I still have that tough riser. What's the engineering behind that? And, why did you get the handle even adjustable? Because
tunability is one way to answer that. We want a bow to be as customizable as we can physically make it. So with a cam and a half system, you have an upper split yoke, you have your rest. That's 2 points of tuning that you can do if you're not throwing a perfect bullet hole. Rest goes left and right, and then you can yoke tune. So by having that custom tune grip that allows you to move a lower plate 50 thousandths left or 50 thousandths right, I'm able to change the individual's feedback into the grip or the input. So when I come to full draw, because of the pressure I put into my grip, I typically throw a left tear if I'm perfectly down the center of the bow. So I can either yoke tune and lean that top cam. Mm-hmm. If I don't get it out, now I'm moving my rest inside. And I love shooting an 1.5 inch fixed blade broadhead. The problem with that is I now bring those broadhead blades into my riser. Mm-hmm. So by giving that custom tune grip option, we now have 3 different ways we can tune that bow. We can start with the grip. I can take out almost a 1/2 inch tear just by moving that grip 50 thousandths left or right, depending on how I'm getting into the bow. Still throw a little bit of tear, a turn or 2 in my yoke if I need it, and I'm done. And I can still run down the center and get the maximum clearance for my broadhead and for my vanes on my roller guard.
Yeah.
So it's all about that individual customizable option, because we all have different grips. We have different size hands.
Yeah.
We have different inputs. I go a little bit more vertical here with my knuckles at 45. I know that guys like to come inside and put more heel pressure in. Some guys come more outside and their knuckles are almost flat and they're out on the edge of that thumb.
Yeah.
So we all have different grips. We all have different size hands. All that contact is different. Why should you not have an option to adjust that on your bow?
Let's talk about that for a minute. Well, before we, because I want to talk a little bit about shooting and the thing you just talked about. I went on this hunt in Arizona recently with all kinds of buddies. Everyone was shooting their bow, some shooting well, some shooting really poorly. And the one thing that I noticed between the guys that are drilling the target and the guys that are off a lot of times is balance of the bow, the setup, their grip, some things like that. And on the Hoyt itself, and you guys explain to me, because I'm not an engineer, I just like to go kill stuff. When I'm shooting a Hoyt, I pick it up off the rack, I put it in my hand, and it just feels balanced,
right?
Like a weapon. Like, boom, it's balanced. I don't have a bunch of stabilizers on it. I add a quiver even, and I put it real close to the bow, maybe tilt it forward, tilt it back, or do some things. I can get my bow to be completely balanced with the quiver on, no stabilizers, no added gear.
Right.
Why don't more manufacturers build it balanced, and how do you guys achieve it?
So we've always hung our hat on having a balanced bow. I mean, to your point, you pick up a Hoyt and it always balanced in your hand.
Yeah.
And we did that by having the grip in the center of our bow. And so then the arrow traveled a little bit above center on a Hoyt bow, but the bow balanced awesome. So you got the added benefit of having the bow balance well, but if you had any tuning trouble, it might have been amplified because the arrow didn't go through the center of the bow.
I see.
So most of our competitors, they lower their grip so the arrow goes through the center of the bow, and it makes it easy to tune.
Yep.
So a few years ago, probably 2 years ago, we switched and we lowered our grip so that the arrow would travel through the center of the bow.
Like the RX-1.
The RX-1. So now it's easier to tune. It's just it shoots a little better that way. But we didn't want to give up the balance, because when you lower the grip, now you got more bow on the top, and it wants to be top heavy, like you're talking about. So we, if you look at our bows, the bottom pocket and the bottom pocket is wider than the top pocket. So it's wider, has a little more material in it, and it's heavier. So it offsets that lower grip, gives a little more mass in the bottom of the bow. So now, even though our grip is below center, you can pick it up and it still balances like a Hoyt. So that's something that's important to us. When we wanted to move our grip down, we did not want to give up the balance. And that's one of the solutions our engineers came up with.
It feels good. It just feels good.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I was going to piggyback off of was you can't shoot a bow that's not balanced. You can't shoot it well. Yep. It's impossible.
And it takes a lot less tweaking out of the box to figure out a stabilizer setup with a bow that starts balanced.
And not only that, I mean, I don't want to go through the woods with a back bar and a giant stabilizer on the front and, and have to deal with all this weight plus my quiver on the side. It's like, I don't know, there's something about it being easy and efficient to carry. I went like 10 miles in the backcountry. I don't want to carry an extra stabilizer, like add all this weight on an elk hunt when I'm already carrying weight, just to add the ability to balance the bow.
Yep.
And I mean, one of the reasons I want to run the carbon fiber is for the weight. You're talking, what, the carbon fiber bow weighs 4.1 pounds?
Mm-hmm.
The Ultra?
Yep, on the Ultra.
Dude, I don't want to add a pound to that or 6 pounds, or I don't want to go from 4 to 5 to 6 and more.
But the nice thing about carbon is if the hunt calls for it, you can.
Yeah.
So if you know you're going to the Midwest, doing a spot and stock hunt, wind's going to blow, I can put an extra pound and a half on my bow and stabilizers.
Exactly.
But keep them in the same ratio so I don't change point of impact.
Yes.
Because if you change that ratio, you change how it sits in your hand, you change your point of impact.
This year, I set up a bow because it was thick, dense brush for elk, and it was a solo backcountry elk hunt. And I wanted the bow to just drill. Mm-hmm. And I had my quiver on there. I was using a tight spot. Mm-hmm. I got it tight, 7 arrows. I'm backpacking in. I want to have all the ammunition I can. I get back there, and I had the thing it didn't take long at all to have it completely perfectly balanced and to just shoot really well. Now, it's thick. The wind is not an issue. Mm-hmm. And I'm generally shooting elk. It's a big target, and it's not long range.
Right.
Dude, it was the perfect setup. I'm backpacked in really far. I already have my whole camp on my back. It's ideal. Then I go to Arizona, over-the-counter, mule deer, Coues deer tag. Coues are little targets. I got to shoot longer range. They're just hard to get close to. I'm not backpacked in. I'm generally right off roads or whatever. That system, I added the front bar, the back bar, all sorts of stuff to it because you're in the wind. It's open country. And I shot that little Coues deer at 65 yards. It's like the kill zone's like a little grapefruit. Like it's crazy. And you don't realize till you get on it how small. But one of the reasons I had to do that, because like you were saying, Evan, the wind is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Like you just said, blowing you off target, so having that extra weight is big. But I also put a Garmin Zero on the site. It's legal in Arizona, and to be able to just come to full draw and then range at full draw,
hit that button
and hit the button, get my pin. It's pretty remarkable in a spot and stock style hunt for a Coues deer where every twitch within bow range they seem to find or see. So, but that has batteries in it. It's a little bit to the right of the bow, and it really throws off the balance. Mm-hmm. It really throws it off. So I've got to add some of those things to it. But the point I was getting at earlier was without it being balanced correctly, I'm shooting consistently low left, when I'm torquing the bow because my sight is on the right-hand side, and I'm just like, every time, it didn't matter. I couldn't get around that. You balance the bow, boom, I'm perfect. Yep.
And sidebar with an ounce or two on it, and you're done.
It's amazing how much the balance matters, though, because I spent a lot of years growing up just torquing, and shooting,
just compensating for the bow wanting to lean, or
and then I just slide the sight left a little bit, and I still shoot left, but it's not as bad,
right.
But that balance, it really matters, and I feel like a lot of guys, they fail to get that dialed. They go buy a bow, they get it, and the thing that's nice about the Hoyt, like I said, is for my elk hunt, I didn't really need to do anything extra. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Just adjust my quiver a little bit until it was perfect.
Yep. And that's also why if you look at our bows, if you turn them where you're looking at the front of the bow, basically where the arrow would be pointing at you, mm-hmm. you'll notice that the stabilizer bushing on the front is not in line with the grip. It's offset over 1/2 inch. And the reason for that is once you mount a sight and a rest and a quiver full of arrows, you're putting weight on that outside of your bow. Well, if I'm working on balance, why do I want a stabilizer that's in the middle of the bow? All that's doing is helping this way. It's not helping with that lateral torque or that vertical movement. So all of our bows have an offset front stabilizer mount. So your stabilizer is mounted offset away from all of your other mounted accessories to help with that.
Engineering. So you guys are both quite good shooters.
Well, he is.
Jeremy is
I pretend to. He's won Reading, so
I know Jeremy is really good.
Don't let Evan fool you.
My question, so I'm serviceable. Question for you guys: what release do you guys hunt with?
I hunt with the wrist strap, Carter 2-shot.
Really?
Yep. I don't want to lose it. It's got to be attached to my wrist.
All right. And Evan?
I've actually migrated probably about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, to the Carter 2 Simple, which is a 3-finger thumb-activated release.
Okay.
So before that, I shot a hinge for a couple of years. And then before that was a Carter Quickie, which is a hook-style index trigger release.
Okay. When you guys are shooting just for practice, like cycling arrow after arrow after arrow on a daily, like what are you using as a release for that?
Well, if I'm shooting my hunt bow, I shoot my hunt and release.
Okay.
If I'm shooting my target bow, then I have a back tension release.
Which one do you use?
I have the Carter. Oh man, they have so many I can't keep track of, but it's a Carter back
tension.
Yep.
Evan?
I've got a Carter brass. It's a hinge, and I don't remember the name of it now either. It's a custom one.
Okay. So Jeremy, tell me why the back tension? Why not a hinge? Why not something or a thumb or something like that?
Well, I mean, I have when I'm shooting my tournament bow, I have a pouch full of releases. I've got a thumb button. I've got a back tension. A hinge. So just to keep myself honest, if I always shoot the thumb button, you could talk yourself into cheating. And start punching, and that's not good, right? So, but I can shoot that release really well, so I like it in my arsenal. And then, but I also have just a pure back tension that there's no button, and that keeps you honest too, right? So I just like being able to shoot both styles. And if I get out on the range, if I get a Reading and I'm struggling with one, I can't get it to execute, I can swap it to a different release and keep shooting. So
okay. Evan, you?
I switched from my hinge hunting to my thumb button for extra control. I had a mental breakdown in 2015 on a bull elk. And it wasn't a mental breakdown. It was, I need to go now because he's getting ready to go on me. And I poorly executed a shot and just put my release down and walked away from it. So, and I still use that same exact release on my target bow. But especially, when I'm in Kansas spot and stock hunting, I want that added control, especially if I get caught in a 30-mile-an-hour gust.
Yeah.
I can really crank back, have a little control, and still execute a good shot.
Jeremy, did you ever try what Evan did with the hinge or back tension during a hunting situation?
No.
Never have done that?
I want it attached to my wrist. I don't want to lose it. I want it to dig for it. I know there's other solutions. You can get a strap for it, and that's all fine. But I shoot that release really well.
You're right.
That Carter 2 shot, if you've ever shot it, the trigger is one of the most crisp triggers. I mean, there's no creep in that trigger. That's where you get in trouble. When you got a trigger that creeps, you start anticipating the shot, and all sorts of stuff goes wrong, right?
In the 2-shot, is that where the poundage pressure on the trigger can be adjusted? So it just
they have adjustable springs.
It doesn't really move. It just the pressure pops the trigger.
Right.
Yeah.
They typically have a light, medium, and a heavy spring. The light is like a 35-pound. Medium's typically around an 80, 85, and then the heavy is like a 120. So there's no creep, there's no movement to it. It's just a sear break.
Exactly.
Once you build that pressure against that spring,
pops.
There she goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've shot a few Carters like that. In fact, Joel Turner gave me one to use, and my wife uses it today. But I like it because there is no trigger pull really.
Yep.
It's it feels. In fact, I can hook my finger on it and use back tension.
That's the way I shoot.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the way I shoot.
And it feels
those three
kind
fingers
of
hang and just build pressure.
Yeah, build pressure, and then it just sort of goes off.
Yep.
So I actually shot one of those for a couple of years in hunting and really liked it. I used the thumb release. it's based on the carder. And when I come to full draw and I'm holding that there, and I hook my thumb around it, I can use back tension just to pull a little bit and make it go off. Yep. But in a hunting situation, I just hold it and punch it. Like I have a really, really difficult time with all the adrenaline and the excitement, just letting it float. And I feel like I don't even have the motor control because I'm shaking so bad. It's like I can pull, I could put back tension. I can put a lot of just pull real hard on the string, stick that pin, hold, punch. And I'm in there. I only got like one or 2 seconds, and then I'm lost motor control again. Like it's all over.
Yep. Yeah. And I fought that issue early on when I started doing target archery and shooting a thumb button. Is I would hold low, push, nope, and just hammer it and let it go, and who knows where it would hit. And so that's why I initially had switched to a hinge. Was took the click out, set it. It's going to go when it goes. Execute the shot. Yeah. So, I mean, it took me 10 years of that before I finally picked up a button again.
I never had a really hard time, holding and punching the trigger. Like I always shot pretty darn good that way my whole life. You start going beyond 50 or 60 yards and just wasn't as good. But it was for killing animals. It worked great. Never had a problem. And then when I hunted with a hinge for 2 years, I was either a hero or a zero. Like there was no in between. Yep. And after a while, I was like, I can't hunt with a hinge. And part of the reason I did it is because Dudley pushed me into, he's like, all the greats do it. You're good on the range. Why aren't you good on the animal? I'm like, because physiologically, the adrenaline and the feel, it's completely different. And to just let it float and relax through a shot as I'm pulling, I'm not one of those hand manipulators on a hinge. I can't rotate it. I just kind of relax as I'm pulling through back tension and it goes off. And I can't relax when I'm under stress. Like my hand turns into an iron claw.
And especially if you think that animal's going to take a step.
Right. More adrenaline or the wind's blowing and you're like, can't go off yet. Can't go off yet. And you never can get it to hold because you're just getting pushed around. Yep. I needed that, like you said earlier, okay, I got to send it now. This is where I'm at.
And even the send it now doesn't have to mean punch.
Right.
It just means I start executing or building pressure just a little bit more.
I agree. I feel like, man, if I'm in a paper plate size shot, every shot, all the way out to like 80, 85 yards and all the way into 20, I don't obsess about the target like I used to. And if I'm shooting sort of a trigger, I'm practicing, like I'll run up the hill, run down, do a bunch of push-ups, be hyperventilating, pull, and then try to shoot. And it's as close as I can get to what I feel like when I'm about to kill a giant bull elk, right? And I have found, like, under that simulation, my best chance is hold best I can and send it. I'm all over the place with a hinge. I'm all over. And so what I found is I don't have the precision on my shot the way I do with a hinge. But because I could out to, long range, I can Robin Hood some arrows with a hinge. But I'm still within the kill zone almost on every shot. And I used to be upset if I had an arrow up here and 3 inches down into the left out to 60. I wanted them just like all. Now I don't care. Like, I'm out there to kill animals.
I want to wreck arrows.
And I don't
cost money.
I don't have to be that precise. But but I have to shoot with a hinge throughout the year. Yep. I have to practice a lot with a hinge. And then when I go to sort of a trigger option, everything flows. When I'm shooting with some buddies and arrows here, arrows there, arrows here, and they're really all over the place, figuring out whether it's their shooting ability or whether it's their bow, there's two different things going on there.
Yeah. So I've been shooting for a long time. So, and I'm not super technical. Like Evan is very technical in setting up a bow. I am not. I go, I set it up, I shoot through paper, I make a couple adjustments, and when it's pretty good, I go shoot it. And if it shoots good outside and I'm grouping good downrange, I'm good to go. I'm not getting stress over some little thing that I don't know how to fix. Right. Now, if I go outside and I'm shooting it and I'm not shooting well, and I know I can shoot better than that, then I know something's up. and then I come back in the shop, and I try paper again, or I whatever. Then I might have to start asking for help. There's a ton of guys here that are way more technical than me. I'm like, hey, dude, check this bow out for me. What's going on?
But I feel like you can do that because you know you can shoot.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So you have so much more advantage than the guy that's hit and miss. Like sometimes he shoots great, sometimes he shoots poorly. Like he's not consistent with his form, right? Yeah. And so he doesn't quite know on which day whether his bow has gone south, his arrow bow tuning situation, or if it's him.
Right.
Well, and the funny thing too is you'll get a guy come in when I was in a shop and, man, I was shooting on yesterday. Like I was shooting baseball-sized groups out to 40, and today I'm all over the place. Okay, well, your bow probably didn't change. String materials are good enough. Zero tolerance system from us. Like, chances are that didn't change. So, how's your anchor point? How's your finger on the trigger? Are you slamming it? Is it consistent? Are you getting into the grip the same way? Did you tie your peep in correctly? Is there too much gap? Did the peep slide? And so you're still shooting good groups, but you're high or low because your peep moved in your string. Things like that.
Yeah. The thing is, it's fun about archery because it's just all these variables that you're dealing with. This is what makes it challenging and a fun hobby, a fun pastime, fun lifestyle. Because I did a podcast talking to you guys earlier about crossbows, the other day. It's just not the same.
Right.
You can take a crossbow, stick it on a tripod, mount it there, look through your scope, and you've removed all these. You're not using your muscle to hold the bow back. You're not trying to balance it in your hand. You don't have to deal with the peep and the sight housing alignment, and there's just all these
way
things.
Less personal. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're tinkerers. Jeremy loves a 3-vein system. I love a 4-vein system. How does a 3 work for you versus somebody else? So different vein configurations with different spines and different broadheads, and that's why we do it. That's the fun part. It's also the frustrating part because there's so many variables that you can play with every year in a different setup. But
when I get my new bow, I try my old arrows. Yeah. And that's the first thing. I mean, I don't want to change more than I have to. I don't have time, right? I do not have time to go, I'm going to build new arrows.
This is the guy who shows up at the Total Archery Challenge. Yeah, I really didn't have time to do much.
That's
like
true. A couple years ago.
No pre-shooting, and he smokes everybody.
I didn't even have a sight tape.
2 years ago, I didn't even build a sight tape.
Yeah, I was setting my marks as I went. But that's how much I hate setting stuff up. I just, unless it's not shooting good, I won't mess with it. The RX-4 I have right now, RX-4 Ultra, I think it was like a bow that we let people try at sales meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed a bow we were filming this little piece, and so I grabbed it and put it together real quick, and I went out and shot it. I'm like, dude, this thing is pounding. And I just left it, right? Evan saw it a couple weeks ago, and he's like, do you want me to fix your D-loop? I'm like, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't even tell me what's wrong with the D-loop because I don't need to know that.
About it.
It's shooting so good right now. And so that's how I roll. Like, there could be a million things wrong with my setup, but if it's shooting good, nothing's wrong with it as far as I'm concerned.
I'm kind of with Jeremy on that.
Yeah. And I don't.
When it's on, it's on. Are you a little ADD or anal retentive?
Oh, just a little bit. Especially when it comes to my setups.
Yeah.
And it's fun, but it's also very frustrating. I had a bow set up, and it was 2017 because we had just launched the Redworks, and my Carbon Defiant 34 from 2016 was shooting so good. And one of my buddies filled his tag 4 days before I left. He was in Kansas. And so I talked to Jeremy. He goes, well, why don't you set up an RX-1 and take that? Well, I've only got 3 days. Like I can't put a bow together in 3 days and go do this hunt and have any confidence. So
Jeremy's like,
so he's like, I'm just going to throw it together and go. And we did. So we found one, put it together. I've got an LCA press and draw board in my garage. Went in there, put it on the draw board, left it overnight, brought it in, shot in over lunch. I think I had like 20 arrows into it. Built a sight tape, and that was a day out. Lunch the next day, went out, confirmed some longer marks, good to go. Drove straight out there, crossed the state line at like 6 o'clock or 5:30 that morning. jumped in a buddy's truck, picked my brother up out of his drop-off location because he took his wife in on a blind, drove an hour to another location, threw my pack on, and literally am at the bed of the truck, putting stabilizers on, putting arrows in the quiver, cross the fence, go in about 400 yards. Oh, there's a good buck. Boom, done. It's a 20-minute hunt for a 2-day setup and 23 arrows through it. So
you're not complaining though, right?
No, it was. I'll take a quick hunt any day. But
well, I want to ask you, how does a guy become a better archer?
Well, there are definitely right things and wrong things to do in archery. I mean, there just is. So you got to learn proper technique, proper habits. If you're talking, bow hunting, then maybe it's not as critical, but if you're in tournament archery, the mental game becomes that's where I'd always fell. I could shoot a 300 in practice and I'd get down to Vegas to the tournament and they would say, this will be your first scoring end. And I'd be like, oh crap, don't miss, and my mental game wasn't right. So mental is important, especially in tournament archery, but just practice. I mean, you got to have a rig that is tuned. It is capable of shooting as well as you want to be able to shoot it. That is important. I mean, I don't want to make light of the fact that I don't put a ton of time into my tune, in my setup. I mean, I put the right amount of time and then I go shoot it. And if it's shooting, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But just shooting, I mean, that's the thing. Just shooting and learning, learning from whoever you can.
But I have some friends who they'll go out. They're the same shooter now as they were 4 years ago, and they shoot a lot, but they just do all the wrong stuff over and over again.
Yeah, you can't.
It's to me, it's got to be more than just shooting because, for example. The last couple of years, as I've improved my archery skills, there are little tiny things that it's like I have to eliminate certain parts of my shot and then put them all back in so I can isolate what do I do wrong. Like first it's the grip. I'm just dealing with the grip. Okay, I feel like I got that down. Then it's like, okay, I'm going to deal with the holding at full draw. I'm going to deal with just my release, and I can't put it all together all at the same time. Like I got to fiddle around with, well, what if I hold my grip like this? Okay, now what if I hold my grip like that? What happens? And if I do this, or if I line my sight, my peep, if I have a bigger peep or a smaller peep, what happens? Each of these things, I feel like that's where good practice comes into play, not just practice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to practice good habits and practice good technique for sure. You can't do it wrong and do it wrong every day and expect it to work out finally.
That's what I'm saying. If a guy's out there and he's not getting better, you got to start
time for something.
Yeah, you got to start trying something different.
Yeah,
and
that's where blind bailing comes into play. You want to play with a new way to get in the grip or a new release or something like that. Don't start back at 20 or 30 yards and trying to hold on a spot and go through something that's new. Give yourself a 4 foot by 4 foot target or whatever you've got at the house and get up close and just work on whatever that one aspect of either your shot sequence or your shot in general is. You want to change your grip? Get up close, play with it.
Yeah.
And do it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So give yourself that time. Don't try and do it 2 weeks before hunting season. So,
did you have help, Jeremy? Like someone instructing you?
So, man,
because you're so old, they didn't really have YouTube then.
Yeah, I'm so old. So
I think. How old are you?
So I grew up.
I think we're about the same age.
Yeah, I'm 46.
I'm 45. Yeah.
So I grew up shooting a bow. My best friend's dad was a diehard bow hunter. So he would shoot in his backyard every night to get ready, and we had a little little fiberglass recurve, and we were just launching arrows, And so I've been shooting a long time. But when I really, really wanted to start getting good, I couldn't ever understand why guys had target bows. I'm like, well, why do you want a target bow? I mean, I just like hunting, right? And so, but then one year I decided I was going to commit myself to get better. And this was 2003, 2002, 2003, right? I'm like, I want to get better. I want to be a way better shooter. And so I started shooting targets with my hunting bow. And that's, 70 pounds and the draw force curve to get energy. And I'm like, I think I understand why you have target bows now, right? So then I did. I got myself a target bow, and it was 60 pounds, had a smoother draw, and the scope and all that. And so I thought that would be that's how I would shoot better. But then I realized, well, I got to still learn how to shoot. I have all this awesome gear now, but I'm still I was just hitting like the message boards and just read what people had to say. So that was back, you're right, I mean, kind of before YouTube, but it was on message boards, and guys would really, like George Riles and guys like that back then that were on the message boards and just sharing their advice and their
I forgot about those.
Yeah, so that's where that's where I really started learning, and then I would just started going to local tournaments and watching the guys that were really good and learning from them. I mean, I was just like trying to consume content anywhere I could get it. And today there's content everywhere. There's so much better content. But that's how I learned and just practiced like crazy and going to tournaments and hanging around with guys that could shoot good and learning what I could from them. And then, I got a job at Hoyt a few years later and was around a lot of really good shooters here at Hoyt and being able to talk to our pro staff. And so just trying to get advice anywhere I could.
Yeah.
And I'm by no means like I'm not a pro, but I can shoot pretty good, and that's just from learning what I could and practicing.
Do you recommend a guy like do competition to become a better hunter, better shooter?
It made me a better shooter. Yeah, absolutely made me. I can shoot year round. Yeah.
Yep. And whether it's 3D, if that's your game, or if you want to work on spots, the nice thing that really got me into it as far as spot shooting was it taught me how to aim and execute a shot. It's at 20 yards. You're not going to miss the target.
Right.
Unless there is a hinge or a hiccup in your game somewhere, whether that's mental, whether it's something physical that's going on, that'll really expose it. So absolutely.
That's interesting.
If you want to be a better hunter, if you want to become, that 10% of the hunters that shoot 90% of the animals, go after it. Shoot some indoor. Go to your local shop. Get into a league.
It does seem like because I'm thinking about doing it. I've been talking to Jeremiah down at Wild Arrow and been thinking about just getting in one of the programs and doing it.
Yeah.
I just love shooting a bow. So when hunting season was over, I was like, well, now what do I do? Right. And then that's when I started, well, maybe I should try that target archery thing. And then I just, like I said, I love shooting a bow. So it just became, what I do in the off season, whatever.
So which bow are you guys shooting this year? Is it the Ultra? Is it the Alpha? Is it the Turbo? Like, where do you guys stand on that? Is it how do you say it? The Axius?
Yeah, Axius.
Axius? Like, so let's talk here. Like, a guy's looking for something. What are you guys doing?
I'm shooting. What am I allowed to say? RX-4 Ultra.
Okay.
That bow that was hanging around from sales meeting, and I set up, and it was pounding. I haven't changed.
What is your draw length?
I'm 30 inches.
So you got that advantage.
Yeah. So I like it.
And his benefit too is with the new cam design on the Ultras, he's now on the top of the number 2 cam and maxing that sucker out. Yeah. So talk about speed and energy. Right. Yeah. Yep. He doesn't have the issues that the rest of us have.
Right. Because I asked for an 80-pound, RX-4 Ultra, and then a 70. Last year, I didn't run the Turbo. I didn't run the Ultra. But I do like how smooth it feels, and so this year I'm going back to that. But 80 pounds doesn't bother me like at all.
Yep.
And so I went to 70 last year, and the bow was faster, so than what I had run before. So I still didn't give up much in feet per second. But but this year, I've gone all in ultra.
Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, I've always shot the Ultra just because of my draw length, 30 inches, and
you don't need any extra speed.
I like the little bit, longer axle to axle. It feels more like maybe like the tournament bow is just a little more balanced for me and a little more stable. But I can shoot that bow so good. It's just ridiculous. That bow just shoots amazing. So that's what I'm shooting this year. Last year I shot the Helix Ultra. And loved it. I mean, it was smooth as can be. I mean, it shot awesome. And the Axius Ultra is every bit better than that as the RX-4 is better than the RX-3. When I sent Cameron his Axius Ultra, and he was like, and he loved the Helix Ultra. And first thing he said to me, he's like, dude, I don't know what it is. This is just a little bit better. I'm like, I know. So, but that bow, for me, it shoots awesome.
Evan, so your build is a little more like we're kind of more kindred spirits here.
Yep. To be honest, I'm not 100% yet. I ran an RX-3 last year, so the shorter axle.
Yeah.
I really get along with that 31-32 for my draw length. I can make it work because of the string angle. But like Jeremy, I've always just kind of really enjoyed that 34-35 ultra length. But our turbo cam this year is probably the best turbo cam I've ever felt that we've designed. I like having a little bit higher holding weight. Mm-hmm. So with a Helix turbo, I get a little more mass weight around my hand. I get a 31-inch axle to axle. I get the exact grip, which has an ergonomic side cut and a thinner throat, so I get that more target bow feel. Mm-hmm. And I can shoot it in a 28-inch on the top of the number 2 cam, so I get the benefits of Jeremy's Ultra being on the top side of that cam for speed and energy. And I can shoot it at 65 and still have a 340 plus bow. So I don't know yet. So I'll do some playing.
Yeah.
But I'm really personally leaning towards
you're finding
a turbo model.
The turbo is actually it's quiet enough, still smooth enough for you.
Yep. And I'll shoot a 470-ish grain arrow.
Yeah.
And so I should be producing around 295, 297 feet per second, even at 67 pounds. So that's more than enough speed. It's going to be up in the 80 foot per second, 80 foot pounds of kinetic energy range, which is more than enough. So yeah.
And I don't know how fast my arrow's going, and I don't know my energy. Like I said, he geeks out over that, and
you're drilling the target.
So,
tell me about the Alpha, because we just talked about the turbo and the Ultra. Tell me about the Alpha.
So the Alpha is our what's always been our regular bow. Like we had the RX-1, we had the RX-3, we had the Helix, and then we have the Helix Ultra or the Axius Ultra or the RX-4 Ultra. And the Ultra is known as our longer bow, and the Turbo is known as our fast bow. So this year we gave the designator as Alpha to our regular bow, or the shorter version, just to kind of help categorize it. If you looking for this axle-to-axle bow, it's the Alpha series. If you're looking for longer axle-to-axle, it's the Ultra series. And if you're looking for ultimate speed, it's the Turbo series. So
the Turbo series does sound intriguing, given the 28-inch draw that I've got, you know. But I've always been, when it comes to turbo cam, you're getting that speed, you're getting the forgiveness of arrow trajectory and some other things that go with it. I can shoot a heavier arrow, with the same, just have more knockdown power.
Yep.
But the question is it going to be as accurate under the pressure, and how much better of a shooter do I need to be in the turbo cam versus like an Ultra?
And my thoughts on that is when you start talking about forgiveness, especially when it comes to, let's say, brace heights for speed, a lot of that theory that is out there is 10, 15, 20-year mindset, right? When you're talking a 300 foot per second bow versus a 280, okay, that can be a potentially big gap when it comes to time that arrow is on the string to close that distance.
Right.
Okay. Now you're talking 350 feet per second versus 342 feet per second. It's going a lot faster. That same inch that you're talking in brace height difference is not nearly time on the string that it used to be. And I learned how to shoot on a 6-inch brace height bow. I mean, my first hunting rig I put a lot of time into was a Katera in 2008. 33 axle to axle, 6-inch brace height. At the time, it was 330 feet per second. I'm used to that. Like, I built my form around a 6-inch brace height bow.
What are your thoughts, Jeremy?
So I think if you're new to archery, turbo is probably not the way to go. It has a little bit more aggressive cam, and you're still trying to get comfortable with the bow. You're still trying to get your form figured out. You want a bow that's probably a little easier to draw, that you can hold at full draw a little bit easier, and while you're learning what you're doing. Once you've kind of become a pretty average shooter, or a little maybe average or a little above average, you could go with the turbo all day long, and you're not going to be sacrificing any downrange accuracy, in my opinion, in this year's turbo. There have been a couple turbos in the years past where I I didn't like shooting
A
them.
little finicky or a little hot.
They weren't finicky. They were hot. Yeah, I mean, they had a really aggressive cam. And my style of shooting, like I know there's shot execution where you just pull hard through the wall the whole time, and that's not me. I get to full draw.
Yeah, me too. I'm about to rip the cams off.
Yeah, no, and I get full draw, and I like to settle into the anchor point and kind of relax. And with the turbo, that doesn't work well for me because it wants to go right.
Yeah.
So if I don't pull hard, it wants to kind of pull me through the peep sight, so to speak. So depending on your shooting style, if you like to pull hard, and if you're a pretty good shooter, you'll love the turbo.
Okay. What are you? Are you more of a? Are you 85% or 80% let off?
Whatever's on the bow when I get it. 85. I live 85 right now.
Because I feel like I shoot a lot better when I have more holding weight.
Yep. My target bows run 20.5 to 21.2 pounds holding weight. So this year when I built my RX-4, I actually went to the engineers and I want my holding weight on my hunting rig to be within half pound.
Yeah.
And so we built my RX-4 at 77.5, 78 pounds, and it was 19.7 pounds holding weight. So I was within that half pound range. Mm-hmm. So the bow I'm transitioning from with my target bow that I shoot 9-10 months out of the year has the same feel off the back wall for weight. So I can execute the same shot between the two.
I know on my RX-1, as soon as I increased the holding weight dramatically, I was drilling tacks with it.
Yeah. It's just something about your shooting style that likes more holding weight.
Yeah. I mean, I get in there and it's like I have to have all that tension or I just kind of lose it. I don't know what it is.
Yep. And it's almost like a delayed response. It seems to, with me, I love a certain weight on my bow when it comes to mass. And if I put too much mass weight on the bow and I've got nothing to pull against, the pin float, the hole just really opens up.
Yeah.
So, and then you also need to be careful if you're in Idaho, Montana, Colorado, and I think Nevada are the four 80% let off restriction states.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I prefer just the more holding weight. I mean, feels good. You know, if I'm shooting, I don't know, if I'm shooting out of a tree stand and I've got 25 layers of clothing on and it's cold and it's November, I like to have very easy holding weight and an easy draw weight. But when I'm when it's second week of September and it's hot or even just, more mild, I mean, and I'm on the ground and all that, I like to have an 80-pound bow and a holding weight that's up there, and I just shoot so much better.
I think more for me, what I like more or care about more is the draw force curve, how the bow draws. Like, I don't care what the let off is. I just don't I don't like to draw a bow that's climbing, and then bam, it drops you into the bottom of the valley, and it drops fast, and then I don't like that. It's hard to hold.
That's going to blow a moment.
It's hard to hold steady. It's hard to be stealthy, and if you have to let down.
See, I'm so ripped. I just doesn't matter what that curve is like.
I'm not. But if you have to let down too, and you have that cam style that drops off big and right, steep at the back end, and you got to let down, it doesn't want to let down until you got to let up so much strength. I mean, you're like, keep letting up, and then it finally goes, and you've let up all your strength, and so you can't let down smooth if you got a buck or a bull coming in.
I agree,
and you need to let down smooth. Like our cams are designed to be bow hunting cams, and that's what I love. I don't care if it's 80 or 85%. That part doesn't matter to me. Yep. It's how the cam feels as I'm drawing it back and letting it down.
I think I'm sloppy when I get back there at full draw and the let off is too much. I think maybe string pressure that I put on the string is maybe torques it a little bit, or I think I maybe just kind of let it creep a little bit, where with that holding weight, it just keeps me tight against the wall, and I pull. I think it's me just being, it keeps me more consistent from shot to shot to shot, because I can't get away with the stuff I get away with. Or maybe the pressure I put on the string. I'm not sure what it is. I just know that you give me better holding weight, I'm a better shooter, by a lot. Because just consistency is there.
Right.
You know, there's no arrows that are just off over here. There's just every arrow goes right where I want it every time.
Yep.
So, and that's a good feeling. You know, it's the best feeling.
Well, it's all about that confidence. You want to take a rig out and go hunting. You want the most confidence in your set that you can have. So
so we talked about the Carbon series. You know, we should wrap this up, but tell me about the Axius, because this is an aluminum bow.
Yep. So the Axius is part of our premier lineup along with the Carbon series. To your point, it's aluminum bow instead of carbon.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it shares all the same technologies, features, geometry, has the same cam, all the same silencing materials on. I mean, they're twin. Yeah, they're twins other than aluminum and carbon. So, the biggest difference is the price point. So the Axius is our premier bow that's, right around $1,050, $1,100, and the carbon's going to be around $1,500, $1,600. Mm-hmm. But they're both like the Axius, they're aluminum. It gets overlooked because of our carbon bow.
Totally.
But I am telling you, man, that bow shoots so good.
Yeah. So everyone who has the Helix, same thing. Yeah. They're in love with that bow.
Yeah. Yep.
And like Jeremy said, he'll shoot an Axius Ultra this year, and I will shoot an aluminum as well. Whether it's an Alpha, an Ultra, or a Turbo, I don't know yet. Mm-hmm. But it will be one of the aluminum ones.
What are the pros, cons of each, your aluminum versus your carbon?
Well, carbon, obviously, the strength to weight ratio of carbon is awesome. That's why we can have a bow that will pass all our testing standards, our 1500 dry fire test, all that, and it can still be lightweight, because carbon, that's just what carbon's all about. I love the carbon too, that it seems trivial, but it's warm to the touch. When you're hunting late season, cold weather, and if you haven't been practicing with a glove all season, and then you got to either shoot with the glove and hope you hit right, or
it's
take
amazing.
The glove off.
It's amazing the difference.
It's
like it feels like your hand will freeze to the riser when you're doing aluminum.
Even if it's only 50 degrees outside, you'll feel a difference.
Yeah, aluminum, it gets so cold, it just suck the life right out of you. So that's a big, for me,
for elk hunting in September, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Right.
It's irrelevant.
But late season stuff, it makes a big difference. So those are, a couple of the big differences. Aluminum, obviously, we've been making aluminum bows forever. All our competitors making aluminum bows. It's not a bad bow. And that's
what about noise? I know, like noise by bumping it with, like, let's say your wrist release, just hits the riser. I feel like carbon's way quieter when that happens.
It's a duller sound. Yeah.
Duller sound. But what about the sound of the actual bow itself?
To my ear, and it could be the logical, the mathematical brain that I have, is with aluminum being a heavier mass weight. To me, that's physics. Takes more energy to move or to create sound. So to me, when I shoot an aluminum, it's actually quieter, and I don't feel it as much in my hand, especially once I get a stabilizer and everything loaded up on it.
Yeah.
So.
And when we test them in the sound room, when we do our testing, there's no significant difference in carbon versus aluminum. They're both so comparable that we don't say in our marketing the carbon bow is way quieter than our aluminum bow. They're both quiet.
It's interesting because all the backpacking I do in some real deep backcountry, I'm just a weight Nazi, and that matters. And I've been spoiled now with Hoyt's carbon bows. Like, they're light, and they get the job done. They're tough as hell. So it's the perfect backcountry bow, and I'm reluctant to run something else ever that's not carbon now.
It's like 4 ounces difference.
It just feels that matters.
It does.
What about this too? Like, I know when it's strapped to my backpack, there's just things ding into it and all that, and I just feel like, or I'm going through the brush, I just feel like the aluminum's just a little noisier.
Yep. And I think, like you said, when something dings off the riser, absolutely, there's an audible difference in that noise, but I don't know.
They're both awesome bows.
The number one issue, though, outside of the weight, is the warmth.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the king. And if you haven't shot the carbon bow or hunted the carbon bow, you wouldn't know.
Yep.
But you're missing.
When we were at the Western Hunting Show a couple weeks ago, we had a shooting lane at our booth, and everybody would come in. Hey, I want to shoot the carbon. I want to shoot the RX-4, and perfect. Here you go, shoot it. And while we have them there, I'd be like, hey, just shoot the Axios too while you're right there. And they would shoot it, and they were mind blown. Like they couldn't believe that it shot that well. And so whenever someone's asking me like, hey, what bow should I get? I mean, I'm like, you get the Axios or the RX-4, whatever your budget lets you get, because both of them are awesome bows.
Well, you're talking about a pretty significant price difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're $400 or $500, $500 or $600.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
fully set up Axios out the door.
Yeah,
Difference.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this was fun. Thanks for doing the podcast.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks for coming down.
Yeah, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.